When watching Knives Out, it's all too easy to get caught up in the trials and tribulations of Marta Cabrera as she navigates a minefield of moral ambiguity. Or the thrills of Benoit Blanc wrestling with a confounding mystery. Or just the joys of Daniel Craig having the time of his life in this role.
I suspect foul play.
The relevance of Johnson's modern twists on this tired old formula sinks in gradually as events unfold, and sings with startling clarity in the film's lingering final moments. The classic murder mystery tale has always been adept at exploring issues of class and the power struggles that come with that. From classic Agatha Christie stories to more recent takes like Gosford Park, the issues of society at large are often inherent in the genre structure. Take it from the man himself.
There's something about the whodunit genre that is uniquely good at looking at the class structure of a society in the context of a very entertaining movie. It's kind of built so that it doesn't have to slow down and describe a power structure within a society to you. It just has that baked into it.
From the outset, Knives Out presents us with a microcosm of rich, white America. The children and grandchildren of Harlan Thrombey spout half-baked opinions from across the spectrum of political ideology.
No, I don't like him. He's an asshole. But maybe an asshole is what we needed.
Oh, God, yeah. An asshole is what Germany needed
Here
in
we go.
1930.
Come on,
whatever.
Some are outwardly left-wing, and Meg even seems at first to be quite considerate, perhaps even a friend of Marta's. Others are undoubtedly right-leaning.
The boy is literally a Nazi.
He's an alt-right troll dipshit.
While some of them are content to live in opulence without giving it a single thought, the other half occupy themselves with work in some capacity. Linda, Walt and Joni all like to consider themselves savvy business people who have worked hard for what they have, despite their obvious dependence on the power and opportunities their father's wealth has afforded them.
Seems like all his kids are self-made overachievers.
Sure.
We see each of them for the frauds they are as the film continues. But what they all share from the start is a narcissism and hypocrisy so potent that they can clearly see the flaws in each other's reasoning, whilst being completely blind to the flaws in their own.
Yes, I mean, Walt, he's done well with what Dad gave him.
However, all of this infighting and political debating is really just a long-running thought exercise for these people. The stakes in these arguments are so low because none of them has anything personally invested in them. They can always just change the subject and talk about something else. Their class and privilege mean that none of them will ever be homeless, discriminated against, harassed by police, or deported from their country. Seeing their squabbling through Marta's eyes exposes their triviality and outright pettiness. Combined with their treatment of Marta, who they clearly see as a foreign outsider, this blatantly exposes the massive gap between the opinions they state and the actions they take. So what could possibly bring all of these people, who clearly despise each other and disagree on so many fronts, together to fight for the same cause? Rian Johnson shows us with a midpoint twist that changes the focus of the second half of the movie.
I hereby direct that all my assets, both liquid and otherwise, I leave in their entirety to Marta Cabrera.
With this, we are propelled forwards by a new question. Not who killed Harlan Thrombey, but what will the family do to stop Marta obtaining their wealth? The jumble of misaligned characters is suddenly focused into the protagonist, Marta, and the group of antagonists, the Thrombeys, united by the one thing more powerful than their narcissism: class solidarity. The threats and schemes from the other members of the family are to be expected, but the real stinging blow comes from Meg. Marta instinctively trusts her friend, but it becomes painfully clear that although she's an open-minded, politically educated, and left-wing individual, the threat to the privileges that she has grown used to in her coddled life is too painful to bear. She betrays Marta's trust and, in parroting a line that becomes more and more insidious the more times it is said, reveals where her true allegiances will always lie.
We've always been good to you, and you're like family, and we'll take care of you, but you have to make things right.
Marta spends much of this section of the film with Ransom, who, after entering the action with a detestable swagger to hear the will being read, appears to be a character of more depth and sensitivity than we had assumed until this point. But ultimately, the character of Ransom seems to relay a particularly relevant message to the audiences of 2019.
that seemed like an interesting thing to me, to kind of have the quote-unquote jerk be kind of the only one that it seems like you could trust. And then to reveal at the end that, no, don't trust the jerk. The idea that he's the asshole that we need, no, never ends up good.
Of course, Johnson brings it all back around and turns back to the whodunit genre, satisfying the murder mystery plot, absolving Marta of her guilt, and settling the matter of Harlan's inheritance in a classic detective reveals the culprit scene. In the end, we are left with the distinct impression that although Ransom is the guilty party, if any of the other members of the Thrombey family had been the one to find out about Harlan's intentions, they would have committed the murder themselves, so desperate is the instinct to hold on to unearned class privilege. If a classic whodunit ending is designed to deliver justice, then Johnson leaves us with a stirring final image of what justice could look like in America today, punctuated by the best novelty mug in all of cinema.